It is dangerous to go alone. Take this. Hey everybody, this is Michael Sparks. Welcome back to the Sparklepony Roundup. This week, instead of talking about news or new features, I thought I would actually do a little bit of speculation. Just because somebody brought up something on Thursday's Legendary over at Game Breaker TV that I really kind of... It sparked my interest as a conversation topic. So, the topic, I believe it was Mike Schaffner that brought it up, was with the Timeless Isle, everything feels just so quick and cheap. Did the gear really need to be epic? Could we have just put it at a 496 item level, made it blue, and gone on with things the way they have been? I mean, the Timeless Isle was obviously a big success right now. Everybody is all over the place all the time. The gear is just raining from the sky. It's great. If you haven't been playing in a while and you're trying to get caught up and you haven't been to the Timeless Isle, go to the Timeless Isle. Go there now. Oh, wait. Are you there yet? Are you there yet? Because you better be. Okay. Anyway, we have had all these catch-up mechanisms going on since, I'd say since the Darkspear Rebellion. The Darkspear Rebellion kind of gave us the weekly option of getting a piece of 489 gear, which was nice, and got you right up to Throne of Thunder if you weren't there. But do these pieces of gear actually need to be epic? I mean, the item level's already there, and you're not really going through any real effort to get these pieces. Blizzard said a while ago that they wanted to make epics feel epic again, so doesn't this kind of go a complete 180 from that stance? Now, somebody in the chat room, I believe, also suggested that maybe they go a step further and even knock LFR gear down, not in item level, but from being purple to blue, epic to rare. And I think that's a step that's just a little too far in designating what constitutes an epic. I think LFR raiders are already feeling put out enough that they have to wait a little extra time to kill Garrosh, and that they don't get the heirlooms when they do so. And that, I've already discussed that in previous episodes. I don't really think those are issues, but I think if they did that as well, there would be an issue. So we're not even going to consider that. But with the Timeless Isle, with the Darkspear Rebellion, honestly, even with the faction vendors, I feel like maybe that all of that gear should have been blue. And it should have been something to get you into the raids instead of something that you earn alongside. I mean, if you think back to Burning Crusade and you think back to Wrath of the Lich King, and even in Cataclysm, we always had that gear off of the faction vendors that you could buy for gold, but you had to reach certain reputations with the faction to receive a chance to buy. And that mechanic always worked really well. I mean, people put their noses to the grindstone, they got the rep, they got the items, and it helped them get into raiding. We didn't have that this time around, and I believe Blizzard said something about wanting to make reputation feel like it meant more, but in reality, I think that ended up backfiring, because honestly, most of my characters aren't exalted with anybody except for my tune that was my main during tier 14. He's exalted with Golden Lotus. I think he's exalted with Shado-Pan. He's got the Justice items. And then later on, I just grabbed those little tokens that they sold us, ground up to Revered on a couple characters for alts, and stopped doing the rep at that point because I don't care about the cosmetic items, and I already had the mounts. The mounts were account bound. Tillers, I know that a lot of people think the tillers is like really required for raiding. I've never even touched that stuff. The anglers, I don't really care about a mount that can walk on water. Who else? There's just so many reps that we don't actually have to do, and maybe that was Blizzard's intent. Maybe it was just supposed to be something for the achievement hounds, but if they really wanted these things to mean something, I feel like there should have been better incentives. And on top of that, the move of double gating so many pieces of armor with both valor and reputation was just a colossal setback to people trying to get into raids, and I think that might be a large part of why Tier 14 was one of the worst progressions that we've ever seen on a large-scale community. I mean, yes, the hardcore heroic raiders still charged through all of that at the pace they normally do, but on average, the casual raiders, the normal mode raiders, even some of the heroic raiders that just don't raid hardcore, they trudged through that content, and I think a large part of that was because they had to do so much work to get the gear to get into it. And I don't know, I feel like the system wasn't broken, and hopefully in the next expansion we see them go back to that model, or maybe we see them even do something else. My roomie really thinks they should put head enchants back onto faction vendor, gate it with faction rep. That's actually not a bad idea, because right now the meta gems, I feel they're working and I feel they're not working. I kind of think jewel crafting already has enough of a profit margin without needing the crazy awesome meta gems that cost you nearly $1,000 to buy on some servers. I think on my server they're generally about 600 gold, but that's even still quite a lot when they're already raking in so much money from the other cuts that they can make. And I think bringing back the head enchant, maybe making meta gems less impressive, more along the lines of what they were in Wrath or in Cataclysm, might be a better solution for that. Maybe even not so much Cataclysm, because I think Cat is where they started becoming like these awesome things that you put in your head instead of just the nice little bonus that they were in Wrath and Burning Crusade. I think that model was probably the best. I'm kind of going off on a tangent now, aren't I? Okay, tangent and psychobabble aside, the point that I'm getting at is, I know for a little while gear became cheap. I know in Wrath of the Lich King, like, epics were just everywhere. We got them from most of the heroics. We got them in spades from the catch-up heroics. But I don't think that the approach that they've taken in Cataclysm and especially in Mists of Pandaria is the right mechanic. I think it would still be nice to get sporadic epics in the heroic dungeons rather than the super rare drops we have now in Mists of Pandaria. If I'm not mistaken, we practically had none at all in Cata unless you got a world drop. That was crazy ridiculous. I know a lot of people were unhappy with that. Well, I wasn't one of them. I did see the point. I definitely saw the point they were making. I think bringing back the gear on the faction vendors would be a great idea. Maybe not so much gear, maybe not quite as much as we had off of maybe say like the Argent Quartermaster, but definitely better and more options than we had with Mists of Pandaria, where we had like 458s. I mean, did anybody even buy those? I mean, I could maybe see somebody getting one, like maybe the Trinket, even though the Trinket was really, really bad unless you were a tank, as a filler piece if they're just not having any luck in the heroics or with the scenario bags, do the 450 gear. but I don't really think anybody actually went out of their way to get any of that stuff, and most people forgot it was even there. I think that was a idea that Blizzard played with, and it definitely I don't think panned out. But I am going to be really curious to see what they do in the future. It is possible we could end up seeing another double gate of rep and maybe justice points instead of valor, because justice points, much like faction rep, kind of ended up being pointless in Mists of Pandaria. And I definitely don't think they're going to get rid of justice points. I mean, it's too good of an idea to just dispense with. Um, I definitely think we need a progression currency and a catch-up currency. That's just good sense, in my opinion. What they've done with it now, as of this patch, where you can buy all the catch-up gear if you can't get anything at Timeless Isle, was great. I think maybe they could have even done that sooner. Throne of Thunder would have been nice with the Justice Point catch-up. I almost said Valor catch-up, but Valor points are now the ones that are kind of superfluous unless you've got any Shado-Pan assault gear that you hadn't already grabbed. I think there's definitely a lot of wiggle room here to play around with 6.0, whatever they do. I don't know if it's going to be the Dark Below. I don't know if it's going to be the Burning Legion. Either will be fantastic, in my opinion, as long as they do the proper things to get us into that content. And I do believe that faction rep, justice points, and the delegation of epic and rare items are all going to be major factors in that. And they're all things that they have really been experimenting with in the past two expansions. Cataclysm, they dialed it back too far. I think Pandaria, at first they dialed it back way too far, and then they just made it way too easy again. I mean, it went from Cataclysm, where we've got like no epics unless you raid and you get all your Valor caps for the week and everything, to now with the Timeless Isle, and even before that with the Darkspear Rebellion, where it's look under your chair, it's an epic piece of gear. Neither approach is a good approach. I will be keeping an eye on this topic. It's another one that I'd definitely like to come back to and discuss, possibly after the launch of 6.0, possibly even before that, once we get into the beta and the PTR and we kind of know how it's going to look. But if you have an idea or a comment on this, send it to me over at either twitter.com/ponyzord or ponyzord.tumblr.com. You can leave them down below in the comments as well. And I'm going to get out of here. I will be keeping an eye on this topic. It's another one that I'd definitely like to come back to and discuss, possibly after the launch of 6.0, possibly even before that, once we get into the beta and the PTR and we kind of know how it's going to look. But if you have an idea or a comment on this, send it to me over at either twitter.com/ponyzord or ponyzord.tumblr.com. You can leave them down below in the comments as well. And I'm going to get out of here.